Ed Olczyk, who was at the Belmont Stakes watching American Pharoah finish up the Triple Crown race and also watched the Blackhawks hoist the cup. Joining me here now on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Ed?
I'm doing fine, Rich.
What was that like watching the cup go up in Chicago, being a Chicago-based individual as you were for many years?
Well, I mean, it was something you always wondered what it would be like. You dream about it as a kid, growing up here in Chicago and living, dying as a Blackhawk fan, and then lucky enough to have played for the Blackhawks in my very first year in the NHL, and I played in a lot of other places and played my 1,000th game and last game as a Blackhawk. But to see them win that Stanley Cup at home last night, it was just surreal. I've been in a lot of buildings. It was at the old Chicago Stadium, but when Duncan Keith scored that, the first goal of the game and the game-winning goal for the Blackhawks, I don't think I've been in a louder venue or louder building. So it was pretty surreal to see the Stanley Cup paraded in the city of Chicago, and it's the first time that's happened in 77 years. And there's something for conquering history, like you mentioned, the Triple Crown. Well, for Blackhawk fans and people that follow the Blackhawks and part of their organization, I don't think you'll ever top that with what happened last night.
Yeah, well, I heard that actually in 1938, the Cup wasn't even in the Chicago city limits because the league didn't think that they were going to win that night, and there was no Cup actually to be raised in 38. And then here comes the Chicago city limits all going nutty, and also flash flooding, and there was no Cup in time for it was late. It was fashionably late. What happened last night?
Yeah,
Eddie?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what all or why or what have you. We just got word of it in the third period that
you did.
It was the escort was the police escort was getting it for wherever location it happened to be at, and it got pretty dangerous here last night, just in the suburbs and the surrounding areas with flash floods and major thoroughfares being shut down. And but hey, you know what? I think if you were waiting 77 years for the Stanley Cup to be presented in Chicago, what the hell is another 5 minutes?
I know.
So we got there, and it was pretty. It was a pretty cool event because I think in most places, I mean, being in L.A. last year when the Kings got it, for the second time in 3 years, Rich, when the Stanley Cup is paraded onto the ice, I mean, even last night, for as raucous and as loud as the building that was, when the Cup was being brought from the Zamboni entrance to center ice to meet the commissioner, there was almost like a respect being paid by the crowd. It was almost like I would almost say it was a silence, but I mean, it was pretty darn close. And then once they put the cup on the table and the commissioner came and called Jonathan Toews over, the captain of the Blackhawks, I mean, the roof just came off. So, I mean, it was just they do it the right way, but I just thought it was very interesting. And a lot of the buildings, like I say, even Staples last year, when the cup is being paraded and coming out before it's presented, people just have that silent respect for the Stanley Cup being presented, and then their team's going to get it.
Yeah, and then there's the handshake too, Eddie. That's just it. I love that. I mean, it's just and especially when you see in the NFL and in college basketball, the handshake is just like it's just a quick touching of the hands. In the NBA, the coaches just walk off. They don't even do that. But in hockey, it's great respect. That said, Eddie, did you ever go through one of those lines and not really want to do it, shaking somebody's hand? Did that really ever happen to you?
Well, I mean, look, there's guys that have crossed the line and have done things that you just shake your head at. But, I mean, I think you got to be a bigger man and a bigger person. Look, we've had guys that have not gone through handshake lines and just have been emotional or been sore losers, and they've just, avoided it. And that's, that doesn't look good on the individual. So you got to be a bigger person, and, you don't have to say anything. But I think if you just, show respect for the game, you don't have to show respect for the individual if you got a beef with them. We've seen guys get in arguments, and you've seen extra strong handshakes going on, and guys whispering sweet nothings into each other about, hey, we'll see you down the road or whatever. But I mean, that kind of stuff happens. But I agree with you. It's one of the best things about the National Hockey League and the playoffs when you battle so hard, and especially last night you get so close like Tampa, and you got guys banged up. You got guys playing with one arm, one leg. Guys are just finding a way to get out there, and it's just all about the word you said. It's about respect, and you do it because that's the way everybody else has done it, and you're showing respect to the game and to the people you've gone up against for the last 2 weeks.
Eddie Olczyk of NBC Sports joining me here. What about the future of both of these teams now? Bright for the Lightning and the question mark for the Blackhawks because of the number of free agents they have. How do you view these two teams moving forward?
Well, Tampa is going to be interesting. I mean, they got a lot of good young players. They got an outstanding coach in John Cooper. I think Steven Stamkos' contract is up after next season, and that's going to be a real interesting contract because he's going to be looking at Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane money, probably north of $10+ million per season. So how does that affect their scheme and Steve Eisen and their general manager? But they're in a very good spot. I mean, they've got a lot of good pieces there, and you see the emergence of Victor Hedman and Anton Strawman. Tyler Johnson can play with a broken arm or wrist or whatever it was. They got some really good players moving forward. For Chicago, they have salary cap issues coming up. Taves and Kane go to become the number 1 and 2 paid players in the entire league, making $10.5 million per year. And with the salary cap not going up, they're going to have to shed some salary. But the one thing the Blackhawks have done is they've drafted really well and they've retooled very quickly. And this is a team that has a real solid core. They're going to lose some guys. It's going to be 6 or 7 guys that were in the lineup last night are not going to be in the lineup come opening night because of the salary cap. But you have confidence that both of these teams will. You'll be hearing from both of these teams for sure moving down the road.
Lastly, before I let you go, Eddie, you were part of NBC Sports coverage of the Belmont Stakes.
Yep.
What was that like with 90,000 crazy New Yorkers witnessing history that day?
Well, people have asked me, Rich, over the course of the last couple of weeks, in taking the individual part out of it, of being a member of a team that won a Stanley Cup in New York in '94, or scoring my first goal in a game in the National Hockey League, like as a fan and as a broadcaster. I thought the 2010 Olympics between Team Canada and Team USA, the 2 games they played, the prelim in Vancouver and the gold medal game, which went to overtime and the golden goal by Sidney Crosby. I thought that was the greatest event that I have ever been to as a broadcaster and as a fan. But what I witnessed at Belmont Park, at the Belmont Stakes with American Pharoah, conquering history and becoming the first horse to win the Triple Crown in 37 years, the way he did it, the expectations, the pressure on all the connections, and the way that he pulled away down the lane, that's what a true champion does. I don't care what sport it is, man or animal, and the way that the crowd reacted to be front and center there. I was about 25 yards from the finish line on a riser about 15 feet high, so I had the perfect seat in the house, and to see everybody react and realizing that they saw history, to me that was the greatest event I've ever been to, and it was pretty surreal to be there and to be a part of NBC's horse racing coverage. And my very first year, be a part of the Triple Crown coverage. And, hey, I get a Triple Crown the first time around the block working for NBC. So I'm a pretty lucky guy.
Yeah, there is an I in Eddie. You're not, there isn't an Olczyk, but,
Yeah, buy that guy a vowel, please.
Hey, Eddie, thanks for calling in as much as you have over the last few weeks. And I'd love to chat with you, I guess, prior to the Breeders' Cup. When we expect,
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You bet. You take care of yourself,
Thanks
okay? That's Eddie Olczyk of NBC Sports joining me here on The Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.